Well, good morning. Today, we'll be taking a pause 1 week in to our series over the book of John. 1 week in, we're taking a pause, and so we'll make up time on that later. We have 51 weeks to do so. And we'll be kind of sharing some news with you, which, by the way, of the guesses, my favorite one was Q39 being our official sponsor. I wish. Just some free burnt ends, and I'm in. They can sponsor us. It's good. But I look forward to kind of sharing that with you. But for me, I really am so thankful for all that God has done in our church these past 10 years. When we look at things like that video, and we see clips from just all the various stages of the past, where God has been moving and working, and honestly, I'm really thankful. Over the past 10 years and a couple months, we've seen consistent numerical growth. We've replanted 2 churches. We have grown from an average attendance of 125 to over 425 in attendance. We have baptized 242 people. We have walked with newlyweds. We have mourned with those who have lost. We have welcomed a lot of new babies. And by the way, just the people that we know of that are currently expecting, we have at least 10 more babies on the way as of today. And I'm sure there's some that I don't know about yet. And I look forward to rejoicing with you whenever you tell us. I'm really just so thankful that I have had the privilege and continue to have the privilege to serve in a place where God is moving in such a visible way. I don't take this opportunity for granted. And as I think about where we have been and where we are going in the future, I'm reminded of the words of Matthew chapter 25. It says this, starting in verse 14. For it is just like a man, and in this parable, the man is representative of Jesus. It is just like a man about to go on a journey, which represents his ascension back to heaven. He called his own servants and entrusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, depending on each one's ability. Then he went on a journey immediately. So there's the ascension. The man who had received 5 talents went, put them to work, and earned 5 more talents. In the same way, the man with 2 talents earned 2 more talents. But the man who had received 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. So now we are currently existing between verses 18 and 19, where we are waiting on Christ to return, and family, Christ is going to return. Verse 19, after a long time, the master of the servants came and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 talents approached, presented 5 more, and said, Master, you gave me 5 talents. See, I've earned 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You are faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy. The man with 2 talents also approached. He said, Master, you gave me 2 talents. See, I've earned 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. See, the man with 5 and 2, they received the same praise. You are faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy. The man who had received 1 talent also approached and said, Master, I know you. You're a harsh man, reaping where you haven't sown and gathering where you haven't scattered seed. So I was afraid and went off and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours. His master replied to him, You evil and lazy servant. If you knew that I reap where I haven't sown and gather where I haven't scattered, then you should have deposited my money with the bankers, and I would have received my money back with interest when I returned. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have more than enough. But from the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And throw this good for nothing servant into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. In this parable, what we see is that the one with the 5 and the 2, they both used their talents to the fullest. And they earned their master what he rightly deserved. Yet the individual with the 1 talent, he was controlled by fear and then therefore acted with a wasteful laziness by doing nothing with what had been given to him. You see, all he sought was to maintain what had been given. Now, I look at Fellowship West, and I see all that God has given us. I see the people that we keep growing by, and the resources, the opportunities. I see our growing influence. I see the mission that he has given us to share Jesus, disciple believers, and love people. And what I desperately desire for us individually and collectively is to hear the words of this parable of, well done, my good and faithful servant. You are faithful over a little, I will set you over much. However, for this to take place, it involves us faithfully doing all that we can to build God's kingdom. 10 years ago, we launched with this mission to share Jesus, disciple believers, and love people. And it was taken from the Great Commission and the Great Commandment. The Great Commission in Matthew 28 tells us to go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything I've commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age. Or the Great Commandment where it says, Teacher, which command in the law is the greatest? He said to him, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the greatest and most important commandment. The second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and prophets depend on these 2 commands. We launched with the focus of that we are going to share Jesus and we're going to strive to love and to serve people really well. And family, for me, I don't want to waste the opportunities that we've been given. I don't want us to live in fear. And I never want us to be known as squandering away the opportunities that are before us. As I think about Matthew 25 and what he calls us to, as I think about the mission before us, I'm reminded of the words of the author Erwin McManus in his book, The Artisan's Soul, where he's writing about the idea that the Creator God created all of us to be creators under his leadership and authority. And in this, he writes that the process of creating is as follows, that first you dream, and then you risk, and then you create. And the whole premise is that rarely do we create things that really matter that don't involve risk. You see, we've been dreaming and praying, and we have been risking and creating ever since the inception of this church when God called us to begin. I want you to remember with me where we've been. I moved here in the fall of 2013. And on December 1st of 2013, we had our very first interest meeting there at Lenexa Baptist Church for people who may want to be part of starting this fellowship. We met there in the pastor's reception room, and I kind of shared a vision for what we would be, and we didn't yet have a mission statement or things weren't really concrete. I've been in Kansas City for less than a week at this point. We were just kind of starting to get off the ground, but we had a room full of people show up. And then in April of 2014, we had our very first worship service. At that point, it's Fellowship Shawnee. And we gathered in the basement of Lenexa Baptist, and we worshiped, and we sang songs. We read the Word of God, gathering this core team. all with the mission of planting there in Western Shawnee. And every Sunday, people will come up to me, hey, do we have a location yet? Do we have a place to meet? Where are we going? And my answer was always, I don't know. We have a place yet. We called every business, every church that was struggling. We tried renting the schools, and every single door that looked open got shut in our face. And in fact, I find it ironic that this school that my son is now attending is one of the schools that we looked at trying to rent. I remember walking in that lunchroom and looking at launching in that location. And yet all got shut down. And then out of the blue, in May or June of 2014, one of the greatest guys I've ever met, David Erickson, who has since gone to be with Jesus, he called Steve Dighton. And he said, hey, we can't keep our doors open. I think you ought to plant here instead. And I said no the first time because replanting a church sounded terrifying to me. And yet Steve Dighton, who is my spiritual mentor, who I have nothing but immense respect and love for, told me, I think you really ought to pray about this, and I think God may be in it. So I prayed about it, believed God was in it. And then in August of 2014, we launched here in this location. And it's been beautiful ever since. And God has moved, and he has worked. We filled one service, and a couple of years later, we planted or started a second service, and then that began to fill as well. And then we got to a place where we were just out of room at this location trying to figure out what to do. We drove, we looked at a property on Riverview, and accessibility was terrible. There were no utilities, it just didn't make sense. And within a couple of weeks, we were then offered our other location up by the Legends. And God was just going before us, which, oh, by the way, was right before all the COVID lockdowns and everything started, where there was no meeting inside, and it gave us land to meet outside on for months, from June to November, every Sunday, just being outside together. And what a beautiful time that was for us as a church. And family, God has gone before us continually, and we are thankful for all that he has done. Now, none of this, with how things work, none of this is the original design. When I moved here from Louisiana to plant this church, I did not envision how things would now be, and yet I am so thankful for how God moved. You see, God's path for our lives is oftentimes so much different than our own plan. Yet his path is always better than our plan. And so the original launch, the shift to being a replant, the launch of the second location, all of this involved great risk. But as I look back at all that God has done, and I see where I get to serve now and the people that we currently have, I can say every risk was worth it. I will forever be grateful to the brave souls of Bonner Springs Baptist Church and Parkway Baptist Church for the decisions they made, because I know they're hard. But since that time, we look at all the baptisms and salvations, and those individuals from Parkway and from Bonner, they are part of every single one of those moments of life change. Now, over the last 4 years, our staff have been praying, searching, entering seasons of fasting. At one point, we fasted and prayed for lunch every single Tuesday for a year, searching God's will for our church. And by the way, that year of praying and searching and fasting on every Tuesday also was the year that we baptized 52 people in 1 year, and God moved in a miraculous way. Yet now we look at our space and we see that we are in desperate need of more room. We look at the cycle of our numbers and attendance, and we know something has to change. When we were one service here, before we launched a second, what we saw as we tracked our numbers was that we would hit a high number, and then we would fall, and then we'd spend 3 to 4 weeks building back up, and then we'd fall, and we kind of hit this cycle. So we launched a second service, growth resumed, the cycle stopped until we filled the services again. And then we launched the Legends. Now what we see is we're hitting that cycle yet again. We're really out of room in every facet of the meaning. I think in terms of parking, how many of y'all are parked across the street? Yeah, there's a lot of you. There are donuts on the bus this morning. If you were late, you didn't get them. That was one of the guesses at the big news that we're adding donuts to the bus. You're right. That was it. We're done. We can all go home now. Really disappointed. Oh, they're good donuts. All right, never mind. But hey, here's what we know. Parking is an issue here. Parking over there is not a guarantee. They do wrestling meets and things on Sundays. When that happens, we lose our parking. And they could add on more tournaments there if they so choose. And those wrestling Sundays are hard for everybody. But we're utilizing city parking. And so we just have to kind of deal with what we have to deal with. And so parking is an issue here. Same at Legends. We were parking a lot of our cars in the grass. We added 34 spots about 6 months ago. Last week, we only had 2 empty spots, even with the addition of the 34 new spots. Because also we added more spots, more people felt like they could come, and we grew in numbers there. But we're out of parking. Worship attendance, we are growing out of space. They say with a flat floor, you cannot pass 70% capacity and continue to grow. If you look at the room right now, we are past 70% capacity of this room, which also, by the way, in the summer, if you're here in the summer, you know the AC units don't keep up in either of our buildings in the summer. It gets a little hot, which is why you complain it's cold when you get in here. Well, it's because, too much body heat. We got to keep it cool. Our kids in preschool rooms. We had 10 2- and 3-year-olds first hour in that one room, which is chaos. It's a lot. We don't have enough kids in preschool space at either room. By the way, did I already mention 10 more babies on the way? This is good things. It's good growth. We're thankful for it. But it's creating space issues. Same thing in our Legends campus. We recently had to split up more ages based off of just numbers growing there in our kids ministry for the past year. It's kind of been exploding over there. We're out of space, and so we need more space there. We look at our student space. Our students have never had their own captivating space that our students honestly really deserve. Our students are the next generation. They should have their own space for them. They have been flexible. They have dealt with what we have, but we desire for our student ministry to have their own space that's captivating, where they can invest and grow and deepen relationships, and we desire for them to have that. We don't have a good community space on either campus either. I don't know if you know this, our foyer is kind of small. You really can't even walk through there in between services. And when the weather's nice, it's great. People stand outside and they talk. But all the other days of the year when it's cold and rainy, which is kind of where we are right now, we don't have the space for people to sit around and talk, especially between services, which creates some significant challenges for us. Also, adult small group space. When we launched this church, we had a lot less people, like 125, and we had like 4 adult classes. Now we have 2. Why? Because y'all kept having babies. The babies took over every classroom, and so there are now no adult classrooms in this building because everything is filled with kids, preschoolers, and students, which is a praise God thing that we have that many kids, preschoolers, and students, but now there's no space for adults. So we have 1 adult class each hour that meets in the parsonage, and we desire to have more community space for that. So where we've been is this. Over the last 4 years, as we have been engaging in these regular seasons of fasting and prayer, we have been diligently searching for land on which to build a new location where we can bring both campuses back together, where I'm no longer bouncing out of here after service, not talking to you. By the way, I loved not preaching 2 weeks ago, just from the standpoint of I was actually here after service and got to talk to you, which I never get to do. And so we've been looking at these various properties with this criteria in mind. Here's a criteria that a property has to meet for it to suffice what we have. Number one, proximity to K7. If you look at a plot map of where our people live, the majority of our people live fairly close to K7, and we pull from Olathe up to Leavenworth, and so proximity to 7 is really key. Number two, not just proximity to 7, but north and south accessibility to 7. Some of the land we've looked at has not had good accessibility. The land on Riverview had accessibility from the south, did not have accessibility from the north. Some of the land we've looked at, you're having to cut across the K7, which would never be approved. Or you have to drive through a neighborhood for 5 minutes to get to the land that's on K7, which also was not optimal. And so these are some of the issues we face. Third is size of the land. We have a whopping 2.16 acres here and 3.12 acres at our Legends campus. And so we see more space. Next is cost of the land. I don't know if y'all know this. Land's gotten expensive. It's challenging to find land that is not exorbitant in price. Some of the land up and down 7, $2 million is cheap, and 3, 4, 5. I think there's a plot of land up now north of state at $60 million. I think they're pulling for the Chiefs to come. I don't know. But cost of the land is important. And then lastly, what ended up being one of the most prohibitive things on this side of the city is access to utilities. On the other side of Kansas City, access to utilities is everywhere. On this side of the city, access to utilities is a lot harder to come by. And just because it has accessibility to neighborhood utilities does not mean there's accessibility to what a church needs. We have different codes. Fire code for suppression is we have to have a different size water pipe coming in. So one of the properties we looked at, it was fairly close to a neighborhood, and yet this property also has some accessibility issues at K7 and State. But the feedback we got back was about $1.9 million to get utilities and some other things to that property based on what we needed, which that's a lot of money before we're even breaking ground to spend money on land. Another $1.9 million. It gets really high. And so these are all the challenges that we have found. I want you to know that in our original search area where we've been for 4 years, we've pretty much exhausted every land possibility, including calling on some property that wasn't on the market that we thought, that looks nice. Maybe they want to give it to us. They didn't. They didn't. So what we did is over the summer, we chose to expand our search area, knowing that over 4 years we had exhausted everything and where we are. And so over the past few months, really starting end of September, beginning of October, there was a piece of land that kind of captured our attention that's actually been on the market for 3 years, but it was outside of our original search area, so I had not really given it a second thought. We began to filter this property through this kind of carefully constructed criteria, and it matched on everything. And so right now, what I'd like to do is to introduce you to the future home of Fellowship West. Here we have a 16.38 acre lot that is directly on K7. It is about 1.5 miles, 2 miles south of here, right into Western Shawnee. It's a very quick drive. It has not only K7 view where it's over K7, it has north and 7 access off 47th Street with the stoplight, off of Johnson Drive with the entrance and exit, as well as it is 16.38 acres, and it has utilities on site, which when you keep in mind that the one property we looked at was a crazy price on utilities, to find a property that has utilities on site is significant. And I told the staff earlier that I map quested from different locations, and they asked, how old am I? Because apparently MapQuest isn't a thing anymore. Google Maps, I guess. I don't know. I didn't print stuff out. I'm not that old. But I did Google it from various locations. And depending upon where you live, if you live north of here and you drive 7 to this property, it's actually faster to get to the new one than it is to get to here if 7 is your thoroughfare to get here. And also, I Googled it from Baser High School. That's faster than this is, as well as in different locations. And so it really is a very fast, easy property to get to, and it does have utilities on site. One of the most challenging things for me in searching for property was this. I knew that no matter where we went, that it was going to be further from somebody. And I want you to know that I personally labored and struggled through that a lot. And if I'm really being honest with you, do you want me to be honest or lie? I'm kidding. Don't say lie, because I can't lie. I don't know. If I'm really being honest with you, one of the reasons that at times of the past 4 years I've stopped looking and I was dragging my feet is because deep down I knew that we had to expand our search area, and I desperately did not want to hurt or upset anybody in this. When it comes to sharing truth, if I hurt you, I really don't care. In every other facet of my life, I desperately care. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I didn't want to offend anybody. I didn't want to lose anybody because I deeply love my West family. Yet for me, I am reminded of the Matthew 25 passage that I as a pastor and we as a church body are called to be good stewards of the resources, the influence, and the opportunities God gives us. And we are to use them to maximize our ability and potential to build the kingdom of God. And I do believe that this will do just that. I mean, for us, there's only so many services I can preach. There's only so many times our band can hop in their cars and travel back and forth. And so I believe this will be a very positive piece of land. And I have to admit that a lot of the other land that we looked at, I kind of tried to force myself to get excited about, and I could never really get there. And yet from the first moment we saw this land, I felt absolutely captivated by it. It drew me in. I got excited, and the more we filtered it through our criteria, the more excited that I got. So really quickly, I'm going to go through a couple other questions that you may have, and know that these questions I'm going to go through, along with a bunch of others we don't have time for this morning, they are all on a FAQ sheet that we have typed up and printed out that you'll be handed as you leave. Also, if you go to fellowshipwest.com/future, and that website will be up on the screen at the end as well, there's already a website built for this with all the FAQs on there, some other videos of the land, as well as a video with even more information that I shot on the property on Thursday. It also gives you another view on site of the property. So you can go to that webpage, see everything. Also ask me if you have any questions. A couple quick things I want to go through. Number one, we have signed on the property, but we have not closed on the property. And there's a big difference. We are currently in a 120-day contingency period with the option to extend this period for 60 days twice. So we can extend up to another 120 days if we have to. That's our due diligence period to make sure that the land will do everything we need it to do. In this time, we will be doing core samples of the land to make sure there's no rock or things under there that will make it cost prohibitive to build. Checking all the utilities, things that are on site, getting approval from city, getting plans drawn up, land feasibility studies, all the various due diligence things to make sure the property will meet all of our needs will be done before we actually close. And so one of the things you can be doing is praying as we go through all these things. The number one, we'll find favor with the city. One of the things is one of the properties we looked at here in Wyandotte County at K7 and State, the county let us know that they did not want us to buy it and build there because they did not want a nonprofit in that location. They had it set for multifamily housing to get tax revenue. This property that we have under contract has been under contract twice, failed twice because the people that had it under contract twice plan to build multifamily housing there, and Shawnee is turning down every multifamily housing development. And so a realtor already went to the city on our behalf and asked about building a church there, and they said, it's not multifamily housing, it's a church, no problem. Now, does it mean that it's going to be easy? I'm sure there will be some problems and hoops to jump through. However, we've already gotten verbal, won't be an issue there. But we'll be doing all these studies, so be in prayer about that, and know that we haven't closed. Also, don't go walk the property. There is a house on the property as well that comes with it that we have not seen inside the house. But people are living there, and I'm sure they would appreciate not having 425 people come walk their property. And so just don't do it. You can drive by, wave at them, but don't go walk the property. Timeline, we don't have that yet. After we get our buildings drawn up, architectural plans, all those things, timeline will come into play a little more. Also, the quicker we get all the money on hand, because money does kind of run the world, will be the quicker that we will get everything moving forward and done. Next, also, what are we planning on building? Yet again, plans will be coming through, but we'll build this in multiple phases. And our desire is to facilitate all the issues I mentioned earlier, that we will facilitate all those. The cost of the land, they'll be on the FAQ sheet. We were able to get the land for $1.25 million, which does sound like a lot of money. But when you look at what all the other, it is a lot of money, let's be honest. It's a lot of money. But when you look at the cost of other land, especially considering this had utilities on it, we feel like we got a good deal on this property with the access, stoplights, all those things that are around there. And so we feel good about that. Then you can read more on the FAQ about the finance side of things. Lastly, before we close, I know we have to shut it down, how will this impact our mission engagement or missions giving? The plan is for it not to. Number one, we have already submitted and had finance look over a budget for 2025. 10% of our income toward missions is in this budget yet again. That's very important to us that our missions giving does not suffer. We made a commitment years ago when we did not have missions giving at 10% because we couldn't afford to have missions giving at 10%, that we wanted our missions giving, kind of our church's tithe, to be there. And so we got to up that number, and it's our commitment to keep our missions giving at 10% and mission investment at 10%. Secondly, what about our mission engagement here? We do not plan to stop our mission engagement here. Our plan, our heart, our desire, and our focus is on continuing to foster relationships in the Bonner Springs community and around the Legends property, to keep serving the schools, adopting the families in this community during Christmas, serving our teachers. I will continue to be the chaplain of the police and fire department as long as they have me. These are all things that we plan to continue to foster, as well as we are going to work toward being able to facilitate a mobile food pantry to keep feeding families in need. We have relationships here. We have mission engagement here. This is not us vacating our community. We plan to continue to foster those relationships and serve where we are serving and expand those relationships where God will allow us to expand. So to me, that's a very important thing for us to all know is that, like, we want to keep serving here. We have a heart for this community. And as I said, for 4 years, we were looking here, and God shut every door. Didn't expand until 6 months ago, but we desperately desire to continue to serve here as well as where we'll be going. Other than that, you can find everything else on the FAQs or on the website. Here's what we need from you. Number one, we need you to pray and just keep praying that everything will just work out smoothly, that we'll find favor with the city, that core samples will come back clean, and that if it's God's will, that he will continue to open up every single door and go before us. It's evident looking back at our church that God has continually been going before us and that he's been providing for us everything we need. And for us, we believe this is just another step in more exciting days ahead. And so be praying for all those things. Secondly, we do encourage you to give. We know that that money is what it takes to do these things. Land is expensive, buildings are expensive, and so I want you to prayerfully consider and think through how you can help support just these next steps in our ministry. And so here's what I know. Our church is a generous church. You are a very generous people. And we see that with the way that our giving continues to move forward and with the way that we are already a little bit ahead of our budget giving, which is such a blessing that we are continually in that state. But it's going to take people, honestly, being sacrificial in their giving for us to make these things happen. We do not have all the cash on hand to pay for the land because land is expensive. And so our hope is that we can get there before we close. If it doesn't, then the finance team kind of has a plan in place for that. But giving is what that'll take there. So if you have any questions, please let us know afterwards. I clearly won't be here afterwards. I have to go tell the other campus as well. But we will have some staff here, and you can kind of ask them questions. And otherwise, reach out if you have anything. Let me pray for us. Father, I thank you for your plan. God, I thank you for the way that you provide. God, I just thank you for this new opportunity before us, God, and we are so excited to walk forward in this. God, I pray that you will continually go before us and lead us and guide us, and that you will allow us to find favor with you. God, I pray that the money will come in to pay for all of these things quickly, Father, and we do just, God, our desire is that you will receive glory and honor, that the kingdom will be built, that lives will be transformed and people saved. So God, we praise you for all that you do and all that you are in your name. Amen. Now,